guest for today, Heather Stagl. She is based in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States, and a founder and facilitator at Enclaria LLC. And she's an authority on change management and also how that overlaps with innovation. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Heather, and Mimp, if you would hand her the ball, and then Heather can go ahead and get started.
All right.
Thanks, Heather. Welcome.
Nice slides. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yo, awesome.
All right. Sweet. Well, and speaking of failing forward, right before I jumped on this, I had a glass full of iced tea that I knocked off my desk, and it crashed to the floor and spilled everywhere, including on my surge protector. And like right as Mark was introducing me, my monitor kind of went out and then went back. And so hopefully that won't happen again. But if I'm like, that's why. Okay, we're talking about change management for innovation today. And so we want to start by asking everyone in the chat, if you can open up the chat window, what does change management mean to you? Just want to get an idea of what change management means to you and start there. If you open up the chat and go ahead and type that, what does change management mean to you?
I like that. Guiding transition. Yeah.
Guiding transition, upsetting people, facilitating change, asking for permission, pain, arrows in the back, making people uncomfortable and managing the pain, streamlining chaos. We probably need to manage change. Oh, it's too fast.
Yeah.
We probably need to manage change when people are not
yes.
naturally open for it. Strategic planning to marching for better, managing the new, how much, how fast. Baffled. How can you manage change? That's a good question. Herding cats. Yep. Great. Managing evolution, old school. Okay. Okay, so you guys are on the right track with what change management is. Let me share with you the difference between design thinking and change management. I'll start there and then talk about change management a little bit more. But design thinking and change management really fit well together, as you can see in this Venn diagram. So on the left-hand side, we have design thinking, which is really about creating the what. What is it that we want to implement? What is it that we want to change? Creating innovation, co-creation, being creative, and all that. On the right-hand side is the change management piece, which is, now that we know what we're trying to do, how are we going to get that done? How are we going to get everyone else to go along with this, especially if we're in an organization and we're trying to implement and get everybody to move in the same direction? So change management is all about implementation, adoption, influence, leadership, getting people ready for change. And then in the middle, we have some of the things that are common between design thinking and change management, which is really around the why. Both are really focused on why are we doing this in the first place? You don't want to just change something or create an innovation without a purpose, right? I mean, why would we do that? And then they're both very human-centered. They require empathy. They both involve new systems and ways of working. They both need collaboration and engagement, and both require quite a bit of research. So you can see that they really do fit together pretty well. And change, when we're trying to implement any kind of change, it kind of looks like this, where if you've got performance on the left-hand side and time on the bottom, and you're cruising right along in the status quo, and then you try to change something. And inevitably, there will be some kind of a dip in the performance of the people who are going through that change, just because that's the way it is. People are learning, maybe they're tripping up, they're trying, failing forward, right? And so there's a little bit, you can't expect people to just flip the switch and they're changed, especially when we're talking about groups of people that are changing at different rates. And so change management is, the reason for it is to try to reduce that dip in the middle, so we don't have quite as much of a dip in performance as we might if we didn't do anything and just told everybody to change. And then also making sure that we get up on the right-hand side back to a better state of performance, because again, why are we doing change unless we're trying to make something better? right? And so we want to make sure that we're not slipping backwards. We want to make sure we don't get stuck in that rut. We want to make sure that we actually get through the change and everybody's fully equipped and ready to go, and they make it through to the other side to better performance. So change management is the set of activities that helps us do that. Okay, so we talked about change management, and so I want to switch to what is innovation? And I'd like to invite everyone to go to a Miro board. And I think Mark's going to put that link in the chat. So there's a Miro board. Let me see if we're there. Yep. Thanks, Mark. So there's a link in the chat to a Miro board. And there is a board that says, what is innovation? And let me scroll in a little so I can see. I have a few questions in there. So, what is innovation is a really, really broad. So we can answer that. But also, what does it mean? What types of projects are included in innovation? And what are you working on that you consider to be innovation? So if you want to go ahead and hop into one of those sticky notes, double click it, and type in your response, and we'll get just for about a minute.
Yeah, just click on any of those green sticky notes and start typing. What is your response to what does innovation mean? What types of projects are included? What are you working on that you consider innovation? Those types of things. Just trying to crowdsource a little bit of what everybody thinks innovation is. Awesome. So what are we seeing, Heather?
Right, I gotta zoom so I can actually see it.
Creative thinking.
Or I just need glasses. Let's see.
Value addition.
And I'd also like
novelty.
to sort of group things together as we go. So if everyone wants to kind of do that, we can give people a chance to just finish what they're typing, and then we can group things together.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
So everybody finish up the sticky that you're working on, and then I will just invite everybody to kind of jump in and start grouping things together. So for example, we have thinking outside the box to solve problems. And then I saw someone else's problem solving. So those kind of go together, right? Outside the box.
Yeah, different kinds of thinking over here.
Yeah, different kinds of thinking.
Where, let's see, change for the better. Changing, creating something new, learning new things.
We've got, see one that says inventions.
Oops. Yeah, there's a value cluster here for sure.
Okay. So we have some ideas around problem solving, thinking outside the box, creative thinking. And then in the
teaching
middle,
DT to engineers. I love that.
yeah.
Good luck. I'm
Working
kidding when I say
better,
that.
creating more meaningful engagement, collaboration. So there's some collaboration themes. create something meaningful that didn't exist before, add value, okay. So lots about adding value, making life easier, from should to is, like that. And then we have this idea of making things new and changing. So novelty, inventions, pattern change, uniquely new solutions, creating something new. Then we've got some that are really specific. So I asked also, what are some of the things that you're working on that you consider innovation? So linking environmental education to design thinking methodology, using DT to improve schools and teaching design thinking to engineers. Great. Okay, so what I'm looking for is something that we can use in the next exercise to figure out what are we trying to change if we're trying to implement an innovation. So I think we need to create a scenario. So what if we create a scenario where we've got let's see. So we can think of an organization where we're trying to get all these things to happen, right? Where we get people to think more innovatively, think outside the box, create more change, right? Would that be a good place to start? Is that?
Yeah, maybe just getting an organization to be more innovative. Is that? Mm-hmm. That's always a good place to start for these kinds of things. I mean, there are a lot of organizations and leaders that want to be more innovative, but it's really hard to do, right? So that could be something.
Right. Okay. Well, let's do that. Okay, so thank you for that. Meryl, we did. Okay, so I'd like to talk about 5 drivers of change. So if we were trying to get an organization to be more innovative and all the things that we just talked about, get people to think outside the box, get people to do more improvements to their own jobs and things like that, right? And adopt more changes and be more open to change, things like that. Then there's 5 drivers that we can use that are part of change management in order to do that. So the first one is clarifying change. And this is one that is often jumped over. It's like we think we know what we're trying to do and we just try to change something or try to figure out how to change it. And I often, when I'm working with people, especially coaching people who are change agents in their organizations, it's usually like, okay, I got to pull on the reins a little bit because we haven't really figured out what we're trying to do. So clarifying the change is the first step to identifying, how are we going to change this? We got to know what we're trying to change first. And then we can dive into the parts in the middle. And I'll start by talking about resistance, which is the part on the right-hand side. Once we know what we're trying to do, we can try to understand, if we know what we're trying to change, how are people going to respond to that? And what are the things that they might push back on? What are the things that are going to maybe trip people up a little bit? What are they going to emotionally react to that we can potentially, if we can design it well, design the change well, we might be able to reduce or even eliminate some of that resistance. So that's the next step. And then on the left-hand side, we have 3 different kinds of influence, really. So one is leveraging leadership. And because we have people who have influence, we have people who have authority in our organizations and in our communities. And we really need their help because they have a lot of sway with the people who are going to be going through change. So we want to sort of adopt their authority and influence to help us out. Build structural influence is about creating the conditions for change to happen. So it's the things that we usually think of with change management, like communications and training and incentives and things like that. But even things as simple as providing people a checklist or, a simple, here's the step-by-step process. Just anything we do to help equip people and get them ready for change. And then the last driver is applying our own personal influence, because no matter how much we build and put out there in the world, if we're not getting in there, having conversations and asking questions and, really getting in there, it's not really going to happen. We can't just let it happen, I guess. So those are 5 drivers of change. And what I'd like to do is dive into, first of all, the clarify the change. And we'll do an exercise together that I use when I'm working with clients. And that is called a before and after chart. So anytime we're going through change, there's going to be a current state, which is the way it is now, and the future state that we're trying to get to. And within that, between those, there's transitions, things that are changing in between. And so we want to make sure that we've identified as many as possible so we know what's really going to happen. Now, think of it as there's different layers to change. So these transitions might happen at different layers. So one layer is the outcome. So there's an outcome that we're trying to change, the result that we're trying to change, like the why are we trying to do this in the first place? There's a change that an outcome that we're trying to make happen. So that might be one change, one transition. We might also have to change a process in order to get that outcome to change. So what does that process change look like? What does it look like now? What does it look like in the future? And then there's behavior changes. Those are the day-to-day things that people do, the interactions and activities that people do every day in order to get things done. And also mindsets might need to shift, that people's attitudes and beliefs and relationships and things like that might need to change what people think. Right? So those are just some examples, some things that you might want to think of, because if we think of, okay, just the obvious that we would need to change, we're not going to really get into what really needs to change in order for this to happen. So a few examples, and this is an example of an organization that I worked with where we were trying to bring more innovation to the company. And it was an 80-year-old company manufacturing, pretty stuck in their ways. And they recognized that if they didn't have more innovation, that wasn't a good thing for the company. So some of the things that we identified in the before and after chart, we have employee engagement changing from people complaining about issues to actively participating in problem solving, for example. And then the source of ideas is something that's changing. That's changing from managers being the source of ideas to everyone being the source of ideas. And then collaboration going from people working in silos to cross-functional teams, and profitability going from stalled growth to new revenue and reduced expenses, right? So this is what the before and after chart looks like. Notice that there's 3 columns, right? So usually we think of before and after as just the from and the to, but I think it's really important to think about the middle section, which is what's actually changing. So let me just show you on the Miro board. Scroll out a little. Okay, so we're going to do breakouts. And the person who's doing the breakouts, if you want to get that started, if you haven't already. We have before and after charts. And we've got one per breakout room, one for the main room, and then different breakout rooms. So if we scroll in here, you'll see there's different sections here, one for each transition. So we'd invite people, once we're in the breakout rooms, to go and find the right board. They're all vertical. The different breakout rooms are vertical, so you can find the one that's for your breakout room that you get in. And take just a minute to go in here and fill out at least one transition. If we're trying to bring more innovation to an organization, what would we need to change? What's changing? And all 3 of those for the same transition. And then everybody share in your group. And then, you can put the ones that are the same together and then pick out the ones that you guys think are the most important and drag those to the middle. And I do have some dots if you want to dot vote at the bottom. Feel free to use those.
Yep. Heather, let me just reiterate this in a different way, just so that it lands with everybody, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
So first of all, when I've done this before with Heather, it's the simplest thing about change, right? Like what is it now and what do you want it to be in the future? It's very simple, but it's very powerful. And it is really, I guess, the foundation of trying to, it's like the first step. Is that right, Heather?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what we're doing is we've, based on that previous sort of crowdsourcing of ideas of what innovation is, we're just going to think of a company or an organization that you have worked with that is not the poster child of innovation, like Apple, for example. Many people think of that as being a very innovative organization. Think of another organization, maybe it's your city government, maybe it's your company, the organization you work with, that's not innovative. What would they need to do to go from where they are now to being very innovative? And we have this Miro board set up so that we'll put you in breakout rooms. I'm going to put the link here in the chat in just a second, and you click on whichever room is in we end up in. You'll have a number 1, 2, 3, 4. So just click on the board that is for your room, and then as a group do this activity. Back over to you, Heather.
Yeah, and can we put 15 minutes in the breakout room timer? Okay.
Do I send people now? Do we start?
Can we put 15 minutes on the timer for the breakout room?
Yeah, so yes, 15 minutes on the timer, Vipka, and we'll give everybody maybe a 2-minute warning before. And I'm putting the prompts for the different breakout rooms in the chat here. Click on the room that you end up in, and then I think we are Heather.
Before we go, someone asked in the chat, what is the change we're working on? So just to reiterate, we've got, imagine you're going into a company and you're trying to make them more innovative, like they need some help. So define, what does that change look like? So if you imagine a company that you've been in that isn't very innovative, and maybe start there and say, what does that current state look like where they're not very innovative, and what would make them more innovative in the future? And come up with a bunch of transitions that would need to change.
Okay, so I send you off to travel now.
Great.
Yes.
See you guys soon in about 15 minutes. I think we've hit the hyperspace button.
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Vika.
Very welcome.
Cool.
Where is, yes. Hey, we've got everybody here that wanted to have here, so it worked.
Perfect. Awesome.
We got Ilona and Dana with us too.
Hi, Anupam.
Heather, could you stop sharing, and then we can all.
Well, do we need to share so people can see what we're doing in the YouTube?
Oh yeah, good point. Never mind.
It's always good to have somebody experienced in the crew. Come back.
All right, so has everyone, so we're in the main room, so you want to do the chart that's at the top.
Right.
So we're doing the same exercise, right?
Yes.
Right. So main room, before and after chart.
Yeah.
Find
so dive into any one of those. And
Yep.
there's actually some on the right-hand side too. I should have mentioned that, but on the left and right-hand side of this chart, you can jump into any of those and fill in some transitions. How do you make an organization more innovative?
Are we going directly to the right-hand side?
Oh, looks like that's where people started. It doesn't matter. Either one. I just left enough space because I wasn't sure how many people were going to show up. So
Got a lot of people. A lot.
Wow. I'm juggling all these open windows. Where are we? Are we supposed to talk about what we're doing?
It might be
Just
easier
take
for
a
me
minute
to talk
to
about
enter
it.
your own, and then we can
Oh, okay.
talk about it.
Right.
Mm.
Try to get a couple down, maybe. It's
Yeah.
kind of hard, but
Mm.
on such a general topic, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Let's
Keep in
change.
mind, we want to think about what are the outcomes that we might want to achieve? What are the processes that might need to change? The behaviors that need to change, and also mindsets that might need to change.
Um, I don't think I'm using the right words, but we can discuss it
Fine.
later.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
It is actually quite powerful to describe what you really want and what you're
Yes,
doing,
very.
what level you're addressing stuff.
Mhm.
It's just such a simple exercise, and it's just wow, make things much more clear.
Yeah,
Totally agree.
especially when you have it as doing this as a group. You know, if you think of a leadership team going through this and really clarifying what is it that they're trying to change, it's getting everybody on the same page is helpful. Okay.
How would you
so-
apply that in an organization or in a business? Would you just assemble the leadership team and have and collect these things, what they want to change?
Yeah, so I've done this as part of a strategy. So there's more exercises that go along with this. We can do a whole exercise around the current state, another exercise around future state, and then you can get a more clear idea of what's really trying to change.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so simple, like you said, but it's so powerful to just get people on the same page with it. So.
A lot of
Okay,
stuff is
so
mindset.
What was that?
I said a lot of things are driven by, I guess, mindset. I'm not sure what you call it, what's changing, but a lot of it is, I'm just going to leave it up to discussion. I'll fill in what I can, but it is hard to find the right words.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm starting on the left-hand side and I've zoomed in. So we've got a culture of communication changing from spreading rumors to addressing issues openly. Actually, why don't I, like people who wrote this, you guys, instead of me reading it, you guys read it and explain what you meant.
Yeah,
So
that
did
was
the
mine,
top left?
actually. That I thought that this is sometimes, very often it's the case that people they're not secure, they don't feel secure, they don't know if they can address things openly.
Mhm.
So, and this is for me, I come from communications, but there's one of the most important things, just having it out into the open. What are we talking about? What's wrong? What's not going well?
Yeah. Okay, who said the next one? Introducing interaction collaboration. Who said that one?
Mark's not here because maybe it was his. I don't know where he's gone.
We're going
Skiing.
from one-way communication to conversation. Okay, who said space distance? Space/distance. Closed cubicles for managers to open spaces. Feedback culture. Talking about people to talking to people. And then failure culture, hiding problems or finger pointing if it doesn't work, to recognize and embrace failures and learn. learning and onboarding capabilities, unexplained technology or other introductions, understood innovation. Okay. And chime in if this was yours and you want to add more 2 cents. Problem solving, going from talk to do and make tangible. And then team driven, going from 1-point leadership to leadership with transparency. And what do you mean by that? Who said that one? Mark again.
Maybe it was Mark. He left.
Mark's gone.
Where did he go? Okay, so let me move over to the right-hand side now. So visibility, going from power structure drives to best ideas can come from anyone. Yep. Operational / management mindset, going from isolated team systems to holistic team perspectives. Okay. More equal grounds and listening to others, going from hierarchy / segregated team to interactive weekly team workshops. Mindset, going from bias informed to less bias driven. Okay. Leadership, going from reactive decision making to strategic decision making. Yeah. And whatever Mark's typing.
Oh, there we go.
Mark is there. He's just hiding. Processes and mindset of people, going from organization centric to customer centric. Okay. Support from organization, going from not equipped or trained to trained and have skills for change. Engagement and interaction, presentation PowerPoints for teachings to using
Yes.
Is that a tool? Okay. Green screen, mural board, annotate functions. Yeah, so a little more technology in that sense. Okay, so we have how much time left on the timer?
5 minutes.
You've got 5 minutes, 5.5
5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, we want to pick, if there were 4 of these that, if we really did these things, it would really drive innovation. So we take another look. And if you want to, there's purple dots at the bottom. If we each want to take 2 and put those next to your favorites.
Did you say put the dots?
Yeah, drag the dots from the bottom, take 2 of them only and put them next to your favorite transition, meaning the favorite being the one that would have the most impact.
Oh boy. I'm switching back and forth here.
They're all
Okay,
very
let
important.
me find the thing. Okay.
I might need to do more than 2 dots, huh? Get 4.
Also, I found where Mark went.
Hi, Ulla. Are you aware of what we're doing?
Hey everyone, just got in here and I'm not sure what's going on, but
Where you grab?
Don't
Oh,
worry.
the dots are at the bottom. Okay, I got it.
Yeah, the
now.
dots are at the bottom of the chart.
Yeah, I didn't see it there.
Sorry about that.
Ulla, just try to go with the flow. What we're doing is Heather just introduced 5 drivers of change, and one was clarifying what the change is as one very important driver of change, and the first, which is mainly forgotten. So this is what we're doing. We're trying to describe what any company might do to go from a not wanted old state to a new state, which is more desirable. And this is what we're trying through the My Report. And if you
Hey, if you haven't voted yet, please do. With 2 dots.
for some strange reason, I can't access the link for the main room, My Report. so I could put it in the chat so Ola can see it as well. Can somebody do that for me?
Yeah.
I can't access it.
Let me.
And access breakout room 4 for some reason. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's the entire my report.
It's okay. Ola gets to see the full picture.
Okay, has everyone voted? And we have somebody waiting in the waiting room too, it looks like.
Yes.
I have one more vote.
2 minutes left.
If
Right,
you have
because
to
what we want to
dance,
do
it
is
should
drag the
be
ones
more.
that have the most votes into the middle. Okay, and that looks like problem solving going from talk to do and make tangible. Okay, I tried to just highlight all of these. Okay. Come on, Miro, work with me. Okay. I'm just going to drag that because that had the most votes to the middle. And this one has 2 votes. So going from organization centric to customer centric. And then what do we have? And then we have a bunch that have 2 or have 1.
We need to vote again.
We don't have time. I'm just going to bring them all in here.
Well, I think some of them, they kind of
Or they're the
say the
same.
same thing or similar things, like that first and second one, it kind of, to me,
They're
they
both
were
about
related.
communication.
Yeah, like
I'll kind
maybe,
of put those together. And then failure culture.
Failing forward. Oh yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
like that first one and the first one on transition 3 and then transition 4, they kind of, I think they could relate to one another. Spreading rumors, they're both culture-based, culture of communication, failure
Yeah.
culture. I'm just throwing that out there as a, just,
The failure culture is not especially about communication. It should be about anything. About
right, I'm saying like one overarches, one's more narrow in focus, whereas the other one is broader, I was thinking. Okay, anyway, yeah, the time, I'm looking at the time, so.
Yeah,
I
we
was
can
just
go ahead and
making a
close
comment.
the breakout rooms.
What did you say?
I was just saying we can go ahead and close the breakout rooms.
Yes. I
People who are
will do it
monitoring that.
automatically.
Actually, I'll stop sharing for now.
Oh, right, Mark, there you are.
I was wandering around the breakout rooms. That's what I was doing.
Oh, okay.
No, come on, you went skiing for a little while.
That's next. That's next.
Okay.
We blamed everything on you while you were gone. So
It's okay. That's why I get paid the big bucks.
okay, well, let's hear from some of the breakouts. What were some of the high-level transitions? Just a couple breakouts. What were the things that you pulled to the center as the big things that you would want to accomplish?
Room 1 was guessing that everybody probably had silos, breaking down silos in all of their, that's our guess.
Mhm.
Curious to know if that's true. Anybody who
others?
didn't have silos in their room? Ah, very good.
Didn't.
Well, that's
Okay,
a good
what
one.
was another one?
We had silos, and when you're asking for big things, we just went for the big ones all the way. We went for culture and trust, really meta topics. We discovered that all our discussions were leading we laddered up very quickly to these big words, and that kind of felt a bit scary. We weren't sure because they again are just such huge challenges. And how do you break them down into little pieces? Yeah, we'll just change the culture because it's so easy.
Right. Well, and if we had more than 15 minutes, you'd probably spend some more time digging into some of those and saying, you know, what do we really mean by if we're trying to change the culture? Right. So what are the behaviors that we would really want to see changing that are indicative of that culture? And what are the mindsets that are behind those? And so you dig a little bit deeper if we had more time. Great. Any others that stood out? Okay.
I thought,
go ahead.
but we had an interesting one. I thought it was just kind of fresh and different. And it was about the staff that had been there a long time, regular existing staff, and bringing in young blood and how that affected things. And I just thought that was a good, as an old school person, I thought that was a good input from the new people.
Heather, I saw a really good one, and it's in, I don't even know what room is, but it was from we've always done it this way mindset to open to new ideas. That seems like that's a mindset. That's the big mindset one. So that was also a very good one.
Right. Okay, so let me go back to sharing.
We had another unique one, I thought, which is that if you're existing client, if you're working primarily with recurring clients, recurring customers, then you're seeing certain kinds of problems. And then if you target bringing in clients or customers that represent a broader set of challenges or opportunities, that also was some entrenched thinking.
Thank you. Let me move around so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so our next step, we want to think about what are some of the things that we might do in order to accomplish some of these things. So Mark, if you can you copy from the main room what we had for the before and after into the current and future state on the strategy board while I'm going through this? That'll get us started.
Yep.
Thank you. So back to the model. We clarified the change. And again, you know, you'd want to spend more time than 15 minutes on this if you're working with a leadership team, let's say, and trying to figure out what are we going to do and what are we trying to really do, and really dig into what do we really mean? Because if you're talking about such high level concepts, it's really hard to figure out, are we doing this or not? Or how are we going to do this? So really digging into what do we mean by culture change? What do we mean by silos? You know, how do we really want people to act together? And, you know, things like that. So we would dig into that and then start thinking about what does that mean for how can we do that? So we would start by, again, looking at how we can reduce resistance, how we can leverage leadership, how we can build structural influence, which is creating conditions for change to happen, and then applying our own personal influence. So I'm going to scroll over. If you guys want to stay in here and in the chat, because we like to do this in the chat. But let me zoom out a little bit. I can. Come on. Okay. So there's a lot of activities that happen before this, but I'm sort of bookending the tools for you. So we've got the clarifying change tool, and then this is at the end, once you've done everything else, figuring out, okay, what is our overall strategy for how we're going to try to drive this change. So what Mark's doing is putting some of the current state. If we had the before and after chart, right? So we have our current state, we have our future state. You want to put those as bookends on the strategy chart. So you have our current state, which is all the things that we talked about as what we're moving from, and then the future state is what we're going to. So think about, and in the chat, if we want to start with resistance, what are some of the things that people might push back on as we're trying to get them to be more innovative, be more customer centric, be open to new ideas, right? Go ahead and enter that in the chat. And Mark's going to capture some of the, not what they're going to push back on. He'll capture what we're going to do about it. Hang on, Mark. So push back on any process change. And why would they do that? Why do people push back on, say, a process change? Insecurity, can we? Saying, I don't want to. Status, not open to the change. Is the why and outcome even right? Yeah. Fear, effort, don't think they can live up. These are great. They don't feel like they're part of the team. It's inconvenient. They're being stubborn. Not invented here. Okay, great. We know all this because we do this ourselves when we're faced with change, right? That's how we know. But what are some of the things that we could do potentially to minimize resistance? How could we address some of the things that you're putting in the chat there? Go ahead and enter that in the chat. So build community, small steps, what's in it for me, increase transparency. Mark, any of these that you want to capture? You don't have to, I know you're not going to get all of them, but relax with humor, collaborate, right? Take it slow. Yeah. Include people. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so those are some things we could do to reduce resistance. And then leverage leadership. What are some things that we would want someone with power and authority to do to help us drive this change, to drive innovation? What are some of those key things that you think, especially leaders, are in a position to do? Go ahead and put that in there. So we've got support, resources, time, living example, provide aspirational models, appreciation, walk the talk, foster bottom-up initiatives, inspire, listening, set the right culture and back it up and reward, patience, fail publicly, yeah, repeat, find the right direction, be considerative and appreciative, yeah. You get all that? Mark's like, very so good. Okay, but you guys get
I'm
the
working
idea.
on it.
So leverage leadership, and then build structural influence. So again, this is about creating the conditions for change to happen. Another question might be like, how do we equip people? How could we equip people to be more innovative? Go ahead and put that in the chat. How can we equip people to be more innovative, get them ready to be innovative and go through this change? So training, reward, innovation, suggestion box, game and fun, creative spaces, listen, a calendar for every cubicle of each milestone ahead, expected behavior clear, meditation, doing it together, create space, encourage participation, yeah, visualize progress. There's more than I can read. This is great, you guys. Yep. Motivation, diversity training, be nice. Milestone celebrations. Great.
Heather,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've been trying to take notes and I just had to stop because I can't do
No,
it.
I know.
But we're not putting them in the strategy diagram yet, are we? This was just sourcing different things.
Yeah,
or
well, I mean, if you
will we-
have some that you can put in there, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
But
Okay. All right.
no, I know it's too much because these guys are coming up with so many ideas, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
And then the
we can
last
walk-
one is,
Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Mark. Did you have something else?
Keep going.
Okay. The last one is applying our own personal influence. Okay. So this is where we need to get in there and actually do something as an agent of change. Okay. So what are some of the things that you can personally do to help people be more innovative or help them move through this change that we're asking them to do? Go ahead and enter that in the chat. So we have encourage, role model, follow Donna's advice, be nice, build empathy tents everywhere, recognize people publicly for their role, get them to think why the change is needed, provide training and transparency, create outlets, find out their strengths, be courageous, share early successes from the change. Great things. Encourage and invite, encourage them to build self-confidence, balance the change and comfort, challenge and comfort, sorry. Walk a different way to the office. Reward all small steps within the team, no limits. Reiterate the whys, speak truth to power. Inspire, yeah. Ask questions, that's a good one. Introduce a friend. Yeah, these are great. More collaboration, internal and external. Great. Yeah. And I would add, because I didn't see it in there, like have those difficult conversations that no one else is having, right? So that's something else that we can have a little courage and do that.
That kind of gets into also speaking truth to power, because that's where you have to really be courageous, because you could get whacked if you say things truthfully to the wrong type of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so like I said, there's a lot of activities that go behind this to create, help you answer what each of these buckets, what goes in each of these buckets. But just wanted to introduce the concept today and share these two tools with you, so you can take this back, and whether you're focusing specifically on innovation or some kind of other change that you're trying to implement, you can use these to help you clarify what you're trying to do. Yeah,
absolutely. So Heather, this is great. I did my best to try to capture at least a few of these. We're running up against time. I do want to just let people who haven't been at a Wednesday Web Jam know, and those who have, remind them that we have a half an hour additional time in the backstage to dig into this whole session more deeply. But I think this has been an amazing overview, I would say, of how change management fits with innovation. And clearly there's tons of overlap. I know that in one of the breakout rooms, there was a question that came up that I think we can dig into after we go into backstage. And with that, I'd just like to, if I could, could you please share the closing slides, and we'll also introduce next week's speaker. But I would just like to thank you before we do that. Heather, thank you so much for a great session. This has been amazing, as usual, way too fast, but that's kind of what we get used to here. And you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Certainly great food for thought for the backstage conversation. And Heather, if you just throw your email address in the chat, then if anybody wants to, or your LinkedIn profile, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, they can. And if we could go to the next slide, we can introduce Alwyn. Alwyn Putt is going to be our next Wednesday Web Jam speaker. Alwyn has written an amazing book called The Captains of Leadership. And we're going to talk about one of the core ideas behind that, which is this idea of facilitative leadership, which is a fascinating thing. Many of us are facilitators, whether professional or just out of necessity. And Alwyn has a wonderful and refreshing take on what it takes to be a leader in a non-traditional sort of hierarchical way. So join us next week if you can, same time, same place. Actually, the time will change a little bit next week, because we'll not be on daylight savings time in the US, or we will, but Europe will change as well. Mimp, you had something you were going to say that? Or?
I was going to say that, and you covered it perfectly.
Fantastic. Okay,
Yes.
And next slide, please. So in our community, we feel free to follow us. That's the team. You can see us on our website, wednesdaywebjam.com. And then finally, if you have any suggestions, please go to our website and you can fill out a little form, and our curation team will, if you have a suggestion for a future jam, just do that there. There's a small form and we'll get back to you as about your idea. And finally, we are totally volunteer run. All of us sort of volunteer our time. We do have a few minor expenses like the things we use to communicate with the outside world. So if you want to buy us a coffee, anything from the equivalent of about $3 upward, we really would appreciate it. We have about $1,000 goal per year. And so if you want to support us, that's how you can do it at Ko-fi. You can just scan that little code there. And also, I think we have it in the chat. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Heather, for a wonderful session. It was awesome. And invite you all to go backstage. And with that, we'll stop the YouTube live streaming. And we are now backstage, which means you can say anything and do anything you want on camera or off camera.
Not yet.
We're not yet.
No,
We need to wave goodbye to you.